way of doing things. As I personally don't know if anything is important to count. Like I said, I give you big lumps of food from gourds to add to, watercress, cucumber, chicory. So there's peppers, tomatoes, peas, split peas, all kinds of melons. You can do melons, watermelons, and all that too. So you can grow potatoes that way, aquatically. So there's not much that can't be grown, and there's enough that can be grown to definitely help people not starve to death.
Yeah, and with the fertilizer creation that would figure out for the compost, would that account for stuff that I guess can't be grown in water? That's why I wanted the compost system as an integral part of the building, so that if there's something else that they want to grow that the building is just not suited for, or they just want to grow it on the side, like. If they want to use compost to grow herbs and spices, they do it in a much smaller system or in a much smaller unit or something like that. They don't need a big old building to grow a whole bunch of oregano or something like that. See, that's a small plant. So you can use the compost to grow that. So now you've got a nice little spice or whatever to go with the other foods and stuff like that. So, it's a built-up process. We're not providing a 2,000-calorie diet out of one building. That's unrealistic anyway. But you put enough buildings together over time, and you're going to get a nice diversity of product. So, what would you say is the main advantages and maybe even disadvantages of aquaponic farming?
Well, the disadvantage. I wonder if I want to tackle that one first. Let me think. What would be a disadvantage of it? Well, if somebody's ethics don't like the idea of using fish, that's one of them. But aside from that. Let me think. It's a highly efficient system. It's much better than traditional agriculture. It uses 90% less water than traditional agriculture. That's another big thing. The water savings of doing aquaponics is over the charts, amazing. 90% less, because you lose so much water to soil erosion. It just goes away deep into the soil, runoff, and evaporation. Because the plants don't even get most of the water that you throw on them. So with aquaponics, it's direct and it recycles continuously. I can only think of advantages. I'm sure somebody could probably come up with disadvantages, but aquaponics is starting to really take off. One could say it's energy intensive if you want it to be. Like as far as needing electricity, you've got to run all the pumps. You have to, if you're using a lot of LED lights instead of natural lights to grow the foods, then you're going to have a lot of energy issues inside that. Whereas if you're growing outdoors or whatever, traditionally, the sun does all the work. The catch is you're outdoors. So as much as nature can be great, nature can also screw you over with a drought or with a storm or with a hard freeze or something that can completely destroy a crop, or with bugs or whatever. Right now you've got to spray and all this other stuff. By putting the growth system in a climate-controlled environment that is isolated from external nature, where you can provide an internal nature that's more what's nicer for the plants, then you bypass all the potential negatives that nature can throw at you. So you also don't have runoff, you don't have soil erosion, you don't even need dirt. Use a recyclable growth medium like perlite or other zeolite, which is different kinds of grow mediums that can be used, and there's all kinds of different ones, and they're getting better and better all the time, by the way. There's a lot of research and development going into aquaponic and hydroponic grow mediums that hold on to the nutrients better, that hold on to the water better on the nanoscale, on the down into the filaments of the fibers of what you're using, so that the root stems can grab onto it. Use electrical discharge in different ways to grab on the water, from the fiber elements of the root to the fiber elements of the medium, and there's a lot of research going into that. And so there's a lot of positives to growing this way. It's scalable, but only to a certain extent. I have purposely made these buildings a specific size, and I'm not going to go any smaller, and I'm not going to go any bigger for a particular reason. anyone can set up a backyard aquaponics system, great, and grow a few things for their own house. It would be hard to grow enough to feed the whole family, but they could grow their own herbs or something like that, right? Or even if they set up a decent system in their backyard, they can grow almost a little salad factory in and of itself for their house. And those systems exist. People can buy them now. They're a couple of $100, or if you want a really good one, you're spending a couple of $1,000, and you can have a nice aquaponics setup in your garage or in your backyard or basement or whatever. There's an energy bill with that, because if you're going to do it in your basement or whatever, you're going to have to use LEDs or grow lights or something that are going to raise your electric bill. So you've got to factor that in. There's an operational cost to that.
Yeah.
Whereas what we're doing is a specific scale. The smallest building is going to be the one that's 60 by 35 feet, roughly. So that's why I say about 2,000 square feet. The maximum size will be about 5,000 square feet. Those are going to be for plants that take longer to grow. They're my 120-day cycle plants. They're the ones that, or more, that take a lot more time. And they're also, so you need more real estate to put more in there so that you get a better staggering of plants. So the scaling affects the efficiency, and if you go too big, so here's where aquaponics runs into a problem. If you start going too big, you're not going to do 10 hectares or of scale, of size of an aquaponics system. I think that would be kind of silly. That's a lot of real estate to try and put fish tanks in and everything else. So there's a kind of an upper limit on what's reasonable. The catch with that, though, is the productivity of the smaller footprint is still much higher than traditional agriculture. So if you just look at basic numbers, and I always go back to spinach because it's a very simple plant for people to wrap their heads around. They know what a spinach plant looks like. They know a spinach plant only takes only 45-ish days, 40 to 50 days to grow. That's another bonus about aquaponics, is that it grows plants bigger and faster than traditional agriculture, not because of any special voodoo magic or spraying of chemicals or anything else, but because the plants are growing in the perfect temperature, the perfect nutrient load, and they're getting the nutrients directly to the root systems with no loss, they just grow bigger, better, faster. It's just healthier for them. So you've put them in the best possible environment, therefore you get the best possible plant. And it just so happens they tend to grow a little bigger and a little faster than normal time scales. So, or what's usually what you find on the seed package. So, but if you look at production capabilities, we can produce, we would do like an acre to acre comparison. The annual production of an acre of land is only about 17,424 pounds of spinach, using spinach. So 1 acre plot grows a certain number of plants, harvested every 40 days. If it completely ran all year long with no stopping and no losses, 17,500 pounds of spinach, roughly. 1 acre of SG40s, which the SG40 is the Smart Greenhouse, SG40 for 40-day cycle plants, like spinach, for example. So the SG40, if I had 1 acre of them, which would be about 20 buildings, 20 buildings equals 1 acre of footprint, that would grow 146,000 pounds. So 1 acre of land, 17,500. 1 acre of SG40s, 146,000 pounds.
Right.
So,
okay, so
massively more productive.
Yeah, so you were going to say.
But you wouldn't really do that. I mean, you wouldn't need to fill an entire acre. You would 2 point some odd buildings would be enough to equal 1 acre productivity. So if you just had 2 buildings, you'd be really close to a full acre of production, and you're only using about 4,000 square feet instead of 42,000 square feet, which is how much an acre is.
So how would you say that the CFS systems compare to other systems, like say for example the Omega Garden, which you've actually featured in one of your videos, Our Technical Reality. a video that I myself, I've lost count of the amount of times I've actually linked that documentary to people who, when I'm talking to them about what is actually possible, I say, could you, tell you what, just take like 40 odd minutes or half an hour, however, because I think it's about 40 minutes. Just take the time. This is what is actually possible. But how would you say that your systems compare to, say, a Mega Garden?
Well, I was originally thinking of using a Mega Garden, but there were certain limitations with the way it's designed that wasn't going to work out quite well for what we had in mind. For example, you have to use artificial light going right down the center of the wheel to grow the food. I actually have an Omega Garden system in my basement right now. That was the very first thing that I did was I got financial support from some fans who who understood what I was doing, and I wanted to test the Omega Garden system, alternative forms of lighting, different ways of doing it. So I bought one, and I have it right now downstairs. And it's not going to work for what we wanted because it's so energy intensive. You have to put in a 500 to 1,000 watt bulb to generate the amount of light that the plants will enjoy. And the problem with that is the power. And if I want an off-grid building that powers itself, I can't have thousands of watts of energy requirement because I won't be able to stick enough solar panels and wind turbines on the building to cover the load. So it just didn't. The Omega Garden would be great for city centers, urban agriculture, in areas where you can plug into a grid from a bigger power source, but you can't self-power it. And the whole point of this company from day one has been to self-power so that it can be put in the middle of nowhere where there is no energy infrastructure or where there is no infrastructure at all, so that the building could run itself. And you can't do that with the Omega Garden system. So after a significant about 6 to 8 months of trying different configurations and different ways of doing it, and eventually I got to the point where I realized it's just not going to work for what we wanted to do. And what Omega Garden is better suited for is higher end industrial applications that are already in a city. The catch with that is now you have a big fat electric bill, so there's a cost, and that cost gets passed on to the consumer, and so there's kind of economic restriction to that as far as I'm concerned. I still think it's an amazing design and idea. You're also limited on what you can grow. It's only so big, and so you can't, leafy greens and whatnot, you're not really going to grow tomatoes very well, because especially vine tomatoes, because they're going to grow to a certain extent and then kind of hang all over the place, and that thing's supposed to spin. So as it's spinning, how are you going to manage the vines is that they grow up into the light, start wrapping around the light. So you see there's a lot of little things you got to think about with that. So there's limitations on what you can grow, but you can grow all herbs and spices and smaller plants. That would be fantastic for that. And some leafy greens, absolutely. But there are other ways to maximize space and efficiency without going circular like that. If people look at the CG drawings of the concept of a CFS building on our webpage at cyberfarmsystems.com, they can see the vertical grow towers that we're going to be using that are kind of like fill and drain towers, and the drain kind of drips out the bottom and goes back into the fish tank. The fish tank is actually in-ground. It's like an in-ground pool, so we're going to dig that into the ground, which doesn't use extra real estate. You don't have to have above-ground fish tanks that take up space. You can put them in the ground. That also helps regulate the temperature of the water by having it in the ground 3 feet. So you dig a 3-foot tank and line it properly with the appropriate materials and whatnot, and you've got this long natural pool that you just put the fish in and stuff like that, and then you hang the grow towers over the top, and some of that stuff has some customized designs that we've put into it to make it work properly, and then the software that manages the building is the biggest thing that we're developing.
All right. Well, because the thing is, I've actually got quite a few friends, and also like myself as well, are seriously thinking about finding ways to construct our own hydro or aquaponic systems like in our own homes in order to in the very least to alleviate the stress on the grocery bill. So I mean I know we've touched a little bit on this earlier. But would you say that you would have any tips for anyone who's thinking of, either purchasing their own systems or creating their own systems?
It depends on what they're doing. There's a steep learning curve for doing aquaponics because you have to maintain the health and prosperity of the fish as well as the health and prosperity of the plants. And you really need to know what you're doing, or you're going to kill one or both in the process.
Right.
There's pH balance of the water. I mean, there's all kinds of sensors and stuff like that, and there's software out there, the little basic rudimentary software that can help people. The problem is, and this is one of the reasons why we're developing our own software interface system, is the software that exists is very technical. So it's very boring. It's very just numbers, and you've got to know what you're looking at when you're looking at it. And if you don't, you're not going to know what it's saying, and so or how to mitigate an issue as it starts to crop up or whatever. So you just need to do the proper research to know what you're doing, because it's not easy. It's not something you can just easily do currently. What separates us from other corporations or other entities or other people that are also doing aquaponics is we are trying to design this building so that a 12-year-old can operate it. It will be highly interactive. It will be user-friendly. It will be educational-based. What we want is an educational, tutorial-based software operating system. So not only will the building tell you what needs to be done that day, it will also tell you why and how to do it. And that the why is the most important. The building will teach people over time the intricacies of how everything is working. So you don't need to know what you're doing when the building turns on, which is exactly the point when you're looking at, let's say, humanitarian relief in a third world village in sub-Saharan Africa. They don't have the educational foundation to know how to operate a tech building. But if the building can teach them in their native language what's what, how everything works, here's what you need to do today, and here's why. Just do these steps, come back and check them off, and you're good to go. So that currently does not exist. There's nothing out there that does that. We're developing that. That's what separates us from everybody else. Our building will not only grow the food, but will teach you how it does it. And then you can use that knowledge to set up alternative systems outside. So now you have a fundamental grasp of it. So now you can build your own smaller aquaponic systems so that you can grow your herbs and spices or other things instead of, a whole new building. Unless you want to the building is good for volume. But if you want to do stuff in your own backyard, it will teach you how to do that too. So for somebody who wants to do it on their own, they just need to do a lot of reading and a lot of research on how aquaponics and hydroponics works. Now, there are plenty of stores out there and people who know what they're talking about that you can bend their ear and get the information. But I would say for the most part, it's a high learning curve. You've got to really be careful on everything that you're doing so that you don't kill the fish and also don't kill the plants. So you just need to learn a lot about biology, plant science, and agri-science to really do it on your own. There are plenty of tutorials and things like that out there to help people do that. But that would be my advice to people, is to read up on it before you do it, because it's not as simple as just grabbing a fish tank and throwing some pumps on it and pumping the water to the plants, and voila, you're good to go. So, by having a good underlying foundation of how it all works, then people can do it. Or just wait for our systems to come out and have 500 of you come together and buy one.
well, that would be the preferable thing. So I guess for CFS right now, it's is it just mainly about getting the funding so you can create the prototype?
Absolutely. That's where we are right now. And we're pursuing all avenues from federal grants to potential crowdfunding campaigns to private investors who are genuinely interested in a project that betters mankind and provides a kind of a legacy of prosperity. They're actually harder to find than one might think. You get a lot of investors that say they want to invest in innovation. Well, actually, they're full of it. They're actually not investing in innovation. They want to invest in growth. Innovation is what happens when you're designing the prototype and testing everything out. That's how I find investors that want to support. But they will gladly invest after you've already done all the work and have a cute little prototype and say, all right, now I'll help you out. We're investing in innovation. No, you're not. You're riding the shirt tails of somebody else who did all the innovation before you. You're investing in growth. You are helping them grow, and that's great. That's because you need a kind of a financial influx of money to grow their company so they can buy all the parts, so they can do all the sales, and there's a place for that. But that's not investing in innovation. Somebody else already did the innovation before those investors showed up. So I think that's the biggest lie that floats around out there by these investment firms who say that they invest in innovation. And then when you come up to them and say, then help us build this prototype, we already have customers lined up, and they're like, oh, we don't fund prototypes. Well, then what the F do you fund? well, you have to have 6 months of operation and should have sold, this much money, had this much profit or whatever. Like, oh, so you're investing in a company that's already started. That's not innovation. They're already started. So it's an interesting. In doing this for the past year, I have run into a lot of bullshit, and the investment community is full of it all over the place. So it's been a challenge finding the proper funding sources. You would think that somebody who has 3 formal letters of adventures from high-level officials in Cambodia and is now a formal delegate at the UN FAO, private sector mechanism in Rome, that you might want to invest in that person because they have some amazing effing connections. And whatever they're working on is a much stronger chance of ticking off than some guy in his garage going, hey, I got this idea. Well, not only do I have this idea, I also have a team of technical experts that know what they're talking about, and I've done a boatload of networking to really get us ready to go once the proto is done, and we still can't find legitimate investors that will jump on board. So it's a challenge. It's kind of annoying, but I'm stubborn. I would much prefer to crowdfund the whole damn thing. I think the power in numbers of people. If we had, 100,000 people pitch in $6, seriously, that's $600,000. If I had 12 people with $50,000, you don't even have to be super rich. Just 12 people with $50,000 could fund CFS. So we're not talking huge amounts of money if you spread it out. If you had 100 people, 500 people. So I love crowdfunding, but sometimes some of the dumbest shit gets crowdfunded. It just boggles my mind that, I just can't fathom how some idiot who wanted to make what was the thing, the sandwich? He wanted to make a sandwich and got millions of dollars, almost to make a sandwich. And I'm like, I just shake my head. I'm like, I cannot believe you people. I cannot believe this. I run a crowdfunding campaign to do something just basic, and I'm struggling to get it funded. Some guy wants to make a turkey freaking sandwich, and he gets a couple of, it's stupid. I think it was a tuna fish sandwich or something. No, chicken salad. It was the chicken salad sandwich. That's what it was, that son of a bitch. Anyway, so yeah, when that stuff happens, I'm just like, sometimes I think our species is doomed. When I see crap like that, I'm like, that's it. I almost want to throw in the towel and be like, you know what? Screw everybody. I'm just going to fend for myself. Good luck to the planet. The human species is going to kill itself. Because I see stuff like that, and I'm just like, what the hell are you people doing? And in a way, it's brilliant, because it was thousands and thousands of people dropping $1, $2. It's not like they were dropping a lot. In half the cost of a Starbucks coffee, they're supporting this guy's chicken salad sandwich. Okay, that's kind of funny. So you could do the same exact thing and drop $2 or $3 to a smart off-grid aquaponic greenhouse that can save the lives of tens of thousands or millions of people, and people don't do that. And I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, those thoughts of, I mean, I'm sure, you're probably the same in this regard, that I've had the same thoughts going around my head watching the whole Black Friday thing. And,
Yeah.
it's just, it's just unbelievable how, people can just be so, it's like people have become cattle, in a sense, for that sort of thing, where their focus is just completely, it's either just been misdirected away from the important things, or just they've just been conditioned to just completely zone those things, to completely screen those out of their perception.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they talk about sheeple, right? Sheep people or whatever. Just how, but humans have always been that way. We're adaptable, programmable species as far as social programming. I mean, people were perfectly okay with the hanging people on crosses in the middle of town square a couple of 100 years ago. So and they're like, oh look, that person did something bad. Now they're bleeding and hanging on a cross with stakes going through their hands. Come on, Junior, let's go get a taco. It's like, what the fuck? At some point, and that was okay, and it's like, how is that okay? And so, things change over time. I mean, I think some things are immutable that really can't change. Biological constructs of existence are difficult to change. Physics, you're not messing with that. So, but social constructs, some things that we, consider normal, aren't so normal anymore or whatever. But yeah, Black Friday is one of them, and funding socially conscious. And it's not just, this is the thing. This isn't just about CFS. I see many amazing projects on crowdfunding websites, and I'm like, damn, that's a brilliant idea. And I'll toss them a couple of bucks, and then it won't succeed because they just didn't get the push. And I'm like, what? How? How did that not get? It's like but this, I'm making a 10-minute video presentation about taking a dump. Please give me my $5,000, and I'll make $10,000. They'll make 200% because he wants to film himself taking a shit or whatever. And it's like, what the? But it's an art project. You're an idiot. This project is 3D. This person is 3D printers for printing cells to do synthetic meat, which would be amazing. By the way, I kind of going back to that food, the vegan thing and all that. Once synthetic meat comes out that actually tastes great and does the job and has the nutrient levels that are required, I'll be all for synthetic meat. Give me the synthetic meat. I'll take the fake meat. That's okay. As long as it's properly, as long as it's proper, I'll do it. But they're looking at 3D printing of that. There was a project to work on something like that. This was a couple of years ago, I think. And there's still stuff that comes out today where I'm like, oh, that would be amazing. And it doesn't launch. And I'm like, people are dumb. There's my jaded side coming out.
Yeah, well, it's completely understandable because, I mean, there's just so much evidence all around that people, like I said earlier, they zone out all like the important stuff and only focus on the banal, ridiculous stuff because, I mean, in a lot of ways that's all they know, and that's what they're taught. If you want to support something good, then support what you know. But I mean, going back to the synthetic meat thing, it was the weekend just gone. I was participating in another one of the London chapter information stalls this week. This time we had it in Islington. And because there's like three locations in London that we're basically circulating between. There's Islington near like virtually across the road from Angel Tube Station. There's also Hammersmith. I'm not entirely sure exactly where in Hammersmith because I haven't attended one of the Hammersmith ones yet. But the other place we do an information stall is outside the Tate Modern. And that was absolutely brilliant. So many people coming up, so open to this sort of thing. But I mean, as I was saying, like me and the guys were in the pub after the information storm. We were talking about ethical ways, ethical dietary decisions and stuff.